Hi, my name is Rob Scott from UC Today, bringing you the latest news and conversation from the unified communications and collaboration space. Today, I'm joined by Ian Guest, who's the marketing director at Pure IP, and principal program manager lead Mattia Tocco from Microsoft. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you, Rob. Hello.
Thank you, Rob. Hello. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks. Yeah, really good. Thanks for joining me today. Got a good session lined up. So before we get started, how about we do a quick round of introductions? Ian, would you like to go first?
Yeah, certainly. So as Rob says, my name's Ian Guest. I'm marketing director at Pure IP. Pure IP are a voice provider providing SIP and direct routing services within the cloud to connect the old worlds with the new.
Thanks, Ian. And Mattia?
Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here. I'm Mattia Tocco. I'm one of the program manager in Microsoft Teams, and I'm working really closely for integrating operators within our ecosystem and working basically for improving the experience on the telephony side for Microsoft Teams.
Great. A very warm welcome. Thanks for joining us. So today we said we'd talk about consolidating telephony in the cloud, Microsoft Teams 2.0. So what does that mean, I suppose? Let's get stuck in. I mean, first of all, Mattia, Teams has clearly enjoyed massive success, but, the telephony piece, not everyone has unlocked that piece. So, what advice would you give organizations looking to unlock the telephony?
So it is true that we saw an acceleration during the last 9 months for many companies when it comes to digital transformation. If we think, for example, to the latest data that we published, we had 650 million calls in the month of October for Teams, which is roughly 11 times the traffic that we had back in March. So as you can imagine, this did require us to quickly accelerate the evolution and scaling of our infrastructure, while at the same time we've been striving and investing for innovating our services and our user experience. So with this context in mind, I would think about 3 areas that we could keep as a top of mind when we think about the evolution of calling and telephony. So firstly, let me start from the fact that we understand that many IT organizations do feel the pressure today during these current times, both from a resources but also budget perspective. So from a Microsoft perspective, we want to make really simple infrastructure management so that we can simplify the life for our IT admins. So from a service perspective, we are working on ways for improving the integration that we have with operators such as Pure IP for basically driving towards bringing cloud-based voice solutions in market that can simplify the experience from an IT administrator, both from an enabling and also operating perspective from a service, but also giving them at the same time the flexibility of selecting the operator of their choice. Staying still on the infrastructure side, I think that programs like device as a service, but also the introduction of low-cost phones will support with the requirements that company may have from a procurement perspective. So that's kind of the first topic I wanted to cover. The second, I think, key topic that I would like to talk about is the improvement of the user experience for voice. We did introduce recently a new completely reimaged calling experience for Teams within our client, basically bringing together the most relevant elements for calling in a single location, together with the introduction of additional features. Many others are in the roadmap, including like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but also new devices, as I was mentioning before, new phones, but also new Teams displays, for example. So innovation and improvement of the user experience are the 2 leading factors. And of course, without never forgetting about simplification, which is always one of our leading principles when we introduce new innovation like this. The third topic that I would like to cover is the support for advanced scenarios when it comes to calling, with capabilities such as for example, certified contact center solutions or voice-enabled channels for Teams-based call queues, or survival branch appliance for voice resiliency, but also thinking about solutions that could be enabled in the mobile space. So these are summarizing the three areas that I think are really relevant when we think about the evolution of calling and telephony, but also always keeping in mind also that Teams is part of Microsoft 365, so voice does represent one of the critical components that we have today in our overall toolbox for productivity.
Thanks for that, Mattia, and you certainly have come on a long way in just the last year. I mean, it's phenomenal to see Microsoft and how you've deployed so many different features and technologies and infrastructure in that time. So, over to you, Ian, for a moment. Let's talk about things from your perspective. How are you addressing the needs of your customers right now?
I think, as Mattia said, that there's no surprise to anybody that the acceleration of the Teams platform, and I think there's a lot of credit goes to Microsoft because they're turning around developments that would sometimes take 3 or 4 months within weeks in some cases. So the rapid development of the platform, I think, has really helped drive the needs for customers. We're seeing a lot of our customers obviously going to Teams, as you would expect. It's very much the platform of choice. But what we're seeing is, particularly with the large multinational global footprint organizations that we tend to deal with, making that transition, first it's a case of turning Teams on for the collaboration, the conferencing and the chat, but then the telephony comes in. And I think once they're looking at those kind of projects, we're seeing two things that are appearing from that. One is that it's invariably a phased type project. So it's not all done at once. So you're inevitably having to look at how do you support different environments. So you're moving to the cloud, you're moving users to the cloud, but at the same simultaneously to that, you need to be looking at how do you keep various things that might be on premise, it might be legacy equipment, it might be legacy systems going. So that's one of the challenges that we're seeing a lot of customers do. So that's what we're having to do to gear ourselves up so that we can provide something that sews all that together for them. I think the next part that we're seeing is very much tied to what Mattia's talked about with the evolution of Teams. I think if you look at the future, the unified communications, this promise of the promised land from years ago, is not necessarily one single provider for everything. It's about having a unified environment of the best of breed type things that work and integrate together, that keeps the user experience and the management experience going. And I think this is where the latest developments within Microsoft and what they're looking for in terms of the evolution of Teams over the next sort of 12, 18 months, I think is going to play into it quite key, because you need to open up those connectivity points for contact center applications, for video conferencing type solutions that might be on site, on premise, that some customers have invested in and still want to write down, for other applications like auto attendant, like call recording and compliance recording, those sort of things. So I think Microsoft Teams opening us those sort of things up for third parties to come in and provide good solutions, but having it under the banner of Microsoft Teams and having that, if you like, that as the glue and the access point to keep the user experience and the management experience seamless, I think is quite key. So that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're working in terms of supporting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it is Microsoft at the core, but it's very much a multi-vendor play, isn't it, as well? And that's what makes it very flexible. I mean, Mattia, what's that? What does that do to the user experience? What impact does that have on ultimately the users?
So the capabilities and experiences that we've been discussing are helping users in staying productive, but equally important in feeling connected with their teams, their colleagues and customers during times where the majority of us are working either remotely or in a hybrid environment. However, even in this context, it's hard sometimes to replicate some of the experience we were used to have in the office. Think about the coffee machine conversation, for example. So it's important that we have different communication capabilities within Teams that are enabling and welcoming different communication styles that will help users basically in recreating this specific experience in a digital way. So I think voice does play a crucial role on this. If we think that on average a call is 1/4 the duration of a standard meeting, which makes calling a quick and efficient way for communicating, in general, for like connecting, for collaborating, or reconnecting during the day. So the experience that we want to bring with everything that we mentioned for a user is to make it simple for them to simply being able to strengthen their connection they have, or to create new connection with a simple quick call.
Yeah, the user experience is so important, isn't it, to get that right as well? Because if organisations don't get it right, if the adoption is slow, then ultimately it's going to have a huge impact on productivity, isn't it? So, from your, I suppose, Ian, from your perspective, I mean, you're quite close to the customers. You're working with them. You know, you add telephony into the mix. What does that? What happens to the experience? You know, is it pretty seamless?
I think it is pretty seamless, and I think there's a lot of points that Mattia pulled up on there, particularly with what we've seen happen over the last 12 months. You know, we are becoming globally a nation, or nations of working remote working styles, and I think we do miss out on a lot of that sort of thing. But I think when you're looking at Microsoft Teams, for example, particularly the mobile experience for that, and the work anywhere type methodology and approach that you take with Microsoft Teams, I think that really helps with generating that combined user experience. So it's very difficult to replace some of the softer elements, so the water cooler type moments, the conversations that you have in the offices. But I think being able to communicate on the go, wherever you are, not that we're doing too much on the go at this moment in time, but that sort of remote working element, I think is quite key. And I think, again, coming back to some of the developments we're seeing with bringing in other third-party applications to provide specific call functionality related to that, that's through the Teams or integrated into Teams, can only help, because the user just needs to be able to do something to keep the productivity up, simply, easily, and conveniently. So that's really the whole nature of what Teams provides you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of organisations out there recalibrating at the moment. I mean, we're in lockdown, or many of us are, but organisations are trying to kind of get back to normal, if we know what normal is. But hybrid working is something I'm hearing a lot of right now. And as you say, user experience in working, whether you're working from home, on the move, eventually, it's certainly going to be different, and we're going to have to adapt. In terms of the management experience to all this change and everything that's happening, in the next kind of stage of Microsoft Teams deployment, what does that look like from your perspective, Mattia, at Microsoft Teams?
Yeah, and I was thinking when you were talking about the experience, that I was hearing my kids talking on the back, so that's part as well of the remote experience. So I think Ian did touch base on this really briefly before, related to companies having basically multiple systems that they leverage for delivering their calling capabilities. And this is normal and completely understandable. However, now more than ever, it's important to understand how we can have a tighter integration across these systems, or even whenever possible to try to consolidate. And of course, without never compromising the quality or the productivity of the overall communication system. And sometimes taking a step in this direction means to remove some of the dependencies that we have from on-premises infrastructures, and start basically evaluating and adopting solutions that are more cloud-based from a voice perspective. This solution will help in basically removing those accountabilities or complexities that are like coming from the operational side of all of this, and basically enabling organization in focusing more towards the core business functions that they need to support. So from a Microsoft perspective, we really want to enable any organization to select their best partners when it comes to calling, basically introducing a seamless management experience across Microsoft services, and services that could be delivered by an operator. So with this, we are basically driving towards having a simplified and unified management experience that is fully integrated in our overall productivity services that are available in Microsoft 365.
Great, thanks, Mattia. That makes sense. And Ian, as a provider offering direct routing capabilities and calling capabilities, how does that all kind of fit in from a management experience point of view?
I think, again, reflecting back on what Mattia says, I fully agree. I mean, a lot of our customers are looking to reduce the complexity. They're looking to bring more convenience in. They're looking to consolidate services without compromising on the quality. So the focus then becomes more on managing the performance of and the development of the whole environment. So rather than the owning of it and the technicalities of it. So there's a more drive towards this cloud type future. And I think with that, you'll see a lot more management dashboards coming through in applications these days. And I think with what Microsoft are doing in terms of opening up that integration, you can bring those management capabilities together in single environments. So it becomes easier to do. They're all cloud-based. You've got more real-time information and insights than you've ever had before. There's various ways of displaying this. So, from our perspective, we've got our own customer portal, which delivers a consolidated approach on the voice services for customers. So you start bringing that into the alongside the 365 tenant. You've suddenly got a rich environment, and then you start adding in applications as well, where you've kind of got this management suite. I think we're going to see those things come closer together, and a lot more of that coming through in management dashboards. So that's what I feel the future will be for us.
So the future is consolidation, I suppose bringing all these capabilities within that Microsoft ecosystem together into some kind of unified interface, which sounds like really is the holy grail for a lot of IT admins, I'm sure. And so, Ian, really just to round this up, I mean, it sounds like you really are responding very, eagerly to the new, I suppose, customer demands nowadays. How can customers find out more?
Well, I guess to find out more about Pure IP, probably the best place to go is to visit our website. There you will find the latest blogs, interviews, coffee clubs, these sort of things, and links off to various material. So yeah, that's at Pure IP, pureip.com.
Super. Hey, Mattia, thank you for tuning in today, and Ian too. It's been superb speaking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Mattia.
No, good. Thank you so much for joining me. And that's it from us. If you've enjoyed today's session, please subscribe to UC Today News and give this video a quick share on social. It's always appreciated. And if you're a UC fan and want to be part of the conversation, you can join us using the UC News hashtag on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Our social links are in the description. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.